A few years ago, I had an experience that still haunts me to this day. It was late at night, and I was driving back home from work after an unusually long day. My stomach was growling in protest, reminding me that I hadn't eaten in hours. Living in the countryside meant that dining options were scarce, especially at that hour. As I scanned the roadside for any place that might still be open, I finally saw a sign for a Subway restaurant just off the highway. It was around 10 p.m., and though I wasn't sure it would still be open, I decided to check it out. I pulled into the empty parking lot, slightly unnerved by the absence of other cars. The lights inside the Subway were on, and as I approached the entrance, I thought I saw someone inside. The door opened easily, and I stepped into the eerily quiet restaurant. No one was behind the counter, and the place felt deserted. Assuming the employee was in the back, I walked up to the counter and waited, hoping someone would hear me. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the restaurant into near darkness, save for the dim glow from the large windows. Confused and a bit scared, I debated whether to leave, but my curiosity held me there. Just then, I heard faint noises from the back room. A figure slowly emerged, stepping into the faint light from the windows. At first, I thought it was an employee, but as he came closer, I realized he wasn't wearing a Subway uniform. He stood silently, watching me. The situation felt increasingly bizarre and threatening. Deciding it was best to leave, I turned towards the door. As I reached it, I heard footsteps behind me, quickening as I moved faster. I glanced back to see the man, now about 20 feet away, following me. Panic surged through me, and I sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys in my desperation. I managed to get inside just as he reached the parking lot. Without looking back, I drove away, my heart pounding. I made it home safely, but the encounter left me shaken. To this day, I wonder what that man was doing there and what his intentions were. Was he a thief, a drifter, or something more sinister? I'll never know, but I'm glad I trusted my instincts and got away. Several years later, when I worked at Subway, I experienced another unnerving incident. It was a busy evening, and the restaurant was bustling with customers. Around 5 p.m., the rush began, and by 6 p.m., the line was out the door. Amid the chaos, I noticed a man in line staring intently at me. His gaze was unwavering and intense, making me extremely uncomfortable. I tried to ignore him and focus on my work, but his stare was persistent. After about 10 minutes, I realized he hadn't moved forward in the line. In fact, he was no longer in line but was still in the restaurant, staring at me. My co-workers were equally busy, and I didn't have time to alert them about the creepy guy. Eventually, the rush subsided, and I took my break. When I returned, the man was gone, and I breathed a sigh of relief. However, as closing time approached, I saw him again, standing outside the restaurant, staring through the windows. He had been gone for hours, yet here he was, just watching me. I got so creeped out that I went into the back to get my coworker. When we both came out, the man was gone. We closed up shortly after without incident, but as we left, I scanned the parking lot nervously, half expecting him to jump out from the shadows. Fortunately, he was nowhere to be seen, and I went home, hoping never to see him again. A few months ago, another unsettling event occurred. I was heading to a Subway near my house one night around 8 p.m. It was located in a quiet strip mall, and most of the other businesses were already closed. After getting my sandwich and drink, I noticed a man passing by on the sidewalk outside. He had shaggy hair and was wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants. He glanced at me through the window but continued walking. I thought nothing of it until I left the restaurant and started walking to my car. I heard footsteps behind me and glanced over to see the same man approaching. He asked if I could give him a ride to a nearby gas station, which was within sight. Reluctantly, and against my better judgment, I agreed. The drive to the gas station was short and silent, filled with an awkward tension. When we arrived, the man didn't immediately get out. He just sat there, and a sense of dread washed over me. I told him we were at his stop, but he insisted this wasn't the right gas station and pointed further down the road. I told him I couldn't drive any further and asked him to get out. He refused, growing increasingly agitated. Just then, a police car pulled into the gas station. The man quickly exited my car and walked away. I breathed a sigh of relief, realizing how lucky I was that the police showed up when they did. One more incident occurred not long after I started working at another subway location. It was a quiet afternoon, and a man came in, asking for a $5 footlong. When I told him the promotion had ended years ago, he became irate, ranting about false advertising and demanding a discount. I refused, and he cursed at me before storming out, saying he would be back. That night, as I was closing the store alone, I heard someone trying to open the locked door. It was the same man, now pounding on the door and yelling at me. Terrified, I called the police and hid in the back until they arrived. They escorted the man away, and I finally felt safe enough to go home. Since these incidents, I've become more cautious and aware of my surroundings, especially when working late or alone. Each experience has left a lasting impression, reminding me of the unpredictable and sometimes dangerous world we live in.